The free agency extravaganza is just about upon us for the 2023 Overwatch League season, and before we get into it, in the calm before the storm, so to speak, I thought I'd take the next couple of days to go over my top free agents at every single position. And something to keep in mind with these types of videos is there's no contenders players or anyone who's supposed to be an upcoming rookie. It's all people who have just entered free agency from the league itself. And in today's video, it's going to be all about supports. Today, I'm giving you my top 10 support free agents heading into the 2023 offseason, but before we get into that list, a couple of honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut. Those people include OG, Ultraviolet, Iris, Majed, Molly, and Gundam Jin. I love all of those guys to death, and I think they're worthy of finding new teams, but they don't quite make the top 10. But who does? Well, starting us off at number 10 is Chorong. In spite of playing for a team that was just okay this year, he still showed that he can be elite at the Overwatch League level. There were maybe some times where it's hard to notice him, but that might more so have to do with just being on a team that's mediocre, you know? It's harder to stand out in those situations. But even so, to a certain extent, Chorong was still drawing some eyes, as him and Twilight were one of the better healing duos in the entire league. He seriously had a really good rookie season. Chorong is the kind of guy who can make a huge difference in the backline. He's young and incredibly intelligent. He did a lot of good work on the Lucio and Brigitte. It even showed that he can flex onto Zenyatta if needed. And if you put him on a more consistent team, he could make some serious noise. Even some of the top teams in the league could probably benefit from his presence. And if Dallas don't get Chio back, let's say, then that makes for an excellent alternative. Another team to maybe consider is the Atlanta Reign in this situation, as they're currently trying to go more towards a Korean environment, and they do need a main support, and it's probably going to be a good idea to pair him up with somebody like Vigilante, which would make for an exciting young duo. If not, maybe you move him to the Houston Outlaws and you have Lastro go back to flex support. He's got options for sure, and I expect him to find a new team very, very soon. Anyway, as we head into number 9, it's going to be Skewed. In spite of being a rotational player for the Gladiators these last 2 years, Skewed has constantly held his own against premier level supports. He's shown that he can be a top level Brigitte, but also a pretty reliable option on flex support heroes. He's flexible and genuinely filled with a lot of potential, and in my opinion, he's probably worth taking a risk on, especially if he's unwilling to rejoin the Glads. He's likely hungry to just get out of the shadow of Shu once and for all and show that he can be a starting flex support instead of just some Brigitte player who occasionally flexes. In all likelihood, he's not going to be some sort of life-changing pickup. I think he's more so meant to bounce off of other players, but he has shown that he can be very consistent and reliable. He's the kind of guy that makes your backline very stable. And the fact that he has experience speaking on an English roster is a major plus that could put him on the radars of a lot of those middle-of-the-road rosters looking to take a chance on a brand new starter. Be it in a Korean environment or an English one, he's going to have options. I could totally see a rebuilding team like Seoul or Shanghai getting him at a discount if at all possible. If not, maybe he heads over to Boston, who might be looking to go Korean this year. Skewed is going to get attention for sure, as he's a multi-time tournament champion. And don't let the fact that Shu is on his team distract you from the fact that he is very, very talented. Coming in at number 8 is Crimzo. He's actually the one and only Western player that I have on this list, and the fact that he can be in the same company as some of these other guys goes to show just how insane he really is at the game. Honestly, after Houston let him go in 2021, I always believed that he should have been playing for a better team. Now is the time to make that happen, as a lot of teams are looking to add Western talent, and Crimzo is one of the best options on the market. Even after going from Houston to Boston, Crimzo saw little to no drop-off in his performance. He was still one of the top support players statistically and had quite a few solid outings that helped his team win some games. Crimzo is very versatile with some crazy mechanics, and he's a proven leader. What else could you really ask for out of a guy? The only issue that Crimzo might run into is he may not have a lot of options since he's only going to get interest from certain teams in the West. There's a world where he sadly might have to share playtime if he wants to expand his horizon. A few reasonable landing spots likely include both Canadian teams as well as the Justice maybe, or honestly, If they still want 2 flex supports and there's no other choice, maybe Crimzo becomes a backup for the Gladiators or the Mayhem, let's say. There's a lot of competition at his position this offseason, but Crimzo is a proven contributor that surely makes his way onto a new roster very soon. Moving into number 7, we have the first APAC player to make the list. It's gonna be Vindaim. As many of you know, I'm a huge fan of this guy. What he did in his first year on Seoul is magnificent. He came into a Seoul team where he was the biggest question mark by far and absolutely popped off. And he did it all the while still having to prove himself in terms of his hero pool and that he can actually be a reliable starter since he did split playtime in contenders. Dude had absolutely everything thrown at him, but he handled it like a true veteran would. This is a guy that literally any team should want to get their hands on. He was easily one of the best main supports in OWL and has a lot of room to grow still, if we're being honest with each other. I could see a lot of big name teams going for him, as he's already proven he can help be that missing piece, as he's won a tournament title with Seoul already, so why not one of these other teams too? It would be pretty cool to maybe see him go the way of Houston, Atlanta, or possibly the Shock. And let's not forget about Philly either in this scenario, as they're a building team that has a bunch of budding young stars already, and I think that pairing up those guys with somebody like Vindaim would just take them to the next level. And when considering what it means in terms of staying in Korea, Philly could probably have a good shot of landing him if he wishes to stay over in the East. At the number 6 spot is a legend of the game that simply had to make this list. That's right, I'm talking about Twilight. He may not be that same guy he was in 2019 in terms of being like the number 1, but he still got it, man. Even after splitting playtime for 2 years on San Francisco, he came over to Toronto and acted like he never ever left Vancouver in terms of playing at that superstar potential level. He's an elite playmaker and difference maker on his role and could genuinely help make a roster a true contender. He's still got the godlike Ana, of course, but he's pretty good across all flex support heroes. He's proven it time after time. Twilight's been doing this for a very long time, and his veteran presence would benefit a number of teams. Let's say the Glads or Fuel are unable to bring back their own flex support from last year. Well, Twilight is not a bad replacement option at all. If not, Philly are definitely right there too. It's going to depend on where some of his peers choose to sign most likely though, as Twilight's basically already accomplished everything you'd want at this level. He's won a championship, he's gotten worldwide recognition, so now it's probably a bit more about having fun. So maybe some of these teams that are potentially going fully Korean could kind of tempt him to come their way by signing some of his friends. Somebody like Houston or Boston could be a real dark horse destination, and Twilight is still arguably a top 3 or 4 free agent at his position, so a lot of offers will definitely come flying his way. Kicking off the top 5 is going to be Izayaki. Now admittedly, he's not as dominant as he once was, but even so, he's still a former champion, a multi-time role star, and by far one of the most talented players at his position. I for one don't really think of him as a top 2 or 3 player at flex support these days, but we might just need to chalk that up to the Dragons not being as good in general. Most of that team struggled at certain points, so that could have made him look a little worse than he actually was. Give him a fresh start on a better team with more motivation to win right now, and we'll see what he can do. And considering his longtime teammate Leejaegon is also on the market, we could see a little 2-for-1 action going on. If not, Izzy's gonna find a starting job on his own somewhere for sure. I mean, outside of the Shock, there's a lot of potential bidders. We're not entirely sure how things go with LA or Dallas with their negotiations, so they're definitely on the table for starters, but then you have to consider Atlanta. Yes, they have Vigilante, who has a lot of potential, but now they could have 2 insane flex supports, and on top of that, Izayaki and Lip used to play with each other, so it would make a lot of sense. Anyway, you get the point. He has championship level experience, he can be one of the best players in the league, he's just a must-have for a lot of these teams potentially. So now moving on to number 4, we're going to talk about his partner in crime, Leejaegon, because in my eyes, Leejaegon had an underrated season. He still maintained his status as one of the best main supports and arguably showed more value than he has in previous years, as the Dragons always seemed to struggle a lot more when he was out of the game compared to when he was in, showing that he's kind of an X-factor of sorts these days. Much like Izayaki, it's hard to say where exactly Leejaegon would stand amongst the rankings, as while still pretty solid, he wasn't the same as he was in 2021. But with Shanghai's general performance and being on their way out, it might mean a lot more to a true contender to have somebody like Leejaegon. They could get more value out of him, as he's always going to be of use in a Lucio or Brigitte meta, and his proactive, aggressive playstyle would help any team play with a lot more confidence. As for where he signs, I would love to see the Shock give him a try. He's got a similar playstyle to Violet, but with a lot more experience at the position. If not, maybe Houston, Atlanta, and Philly could be great bidders. And honestly, as a wild card, maybe even throw in Florida, as they have a bunch of Korean talent over there, and they did show that they liked Majed's aggressive style on Lucio for a certain amount of time, and Leejaegon would definitely fit that bill to an even greater extent with more experience. If a team is missing a main support and they're looking to contend, Leejaegon is a must-have. Simple as that. Anyway, looking at number 3, I have my final main support of the video, Chio. In spite of being a rookie, Chio certainly did not feel like one out there, as he was easily a top 2 or 3 main support in the league, if not number 1, and was able to lead a veteran team full of stars like it was child's play as a rookie. Chio could be that missing piece that leads you to a championship. I mean, he proved it on Dallas already, did he not? And the fact that he's so young and so motivated and full of experience just makes him a perfect long-term option too. If you are opening up your wallet for Chio, then you obviously don't want him. He's just an absolute madman of a player and one of the best players on the entire market, let alone his position. If I'm the Dallas Fuel, I'd do everything to get this guy back in blue. Seeing him go after 1 year would be a tragedy when you could definitely build a solid team around him. Give this man a payday before somebody else does, because trust me, a lot of teams will definitely be willing to. You definitely can't rule out the Shock, or honestly, even the Outlaws are a shout here, as Merritt and Chio were former teammates and contenders. I mean, literally any of his former teammates might want to link up, and if they're all free, then who's to say they don't get some sort of reunion going, you know? The Fuel genuinely could be in a lot of danger of losing their star main support. Regardless of where he goes though, he's one of the best players available, period. The offers are going to be coming left, right, and center for this guy. Now at number 2, I have Shu. Now again, just like Skewed and Chio, there's a chance that he just goes back to his home from last year. But technically, you really can't rule out the possibility that he wants a change of scenery after 2 years of being here. And Shu isn't some ordinary guy. It makes it a big deal that he is on the market right now. The last 2 years have seen him take his game to MVP levels, and in my opinion, there is no greater playmaking support in the league currently than Shu. Nobody is bloodthirstier, and nobody is more capable of taking over a game by himself at the flex support role. If you're trying to contend but you don't feel well-rounded enough, Shu could be that guy to push you over the edge. A lot of teams maybe suffered from not having that X factor or veteran at this position, or simply having that person outside of damage who can consistently open up the game for you. Shu is him. He is that guy. He was the only support player this year in the MVP conversation and has consistently been a top 2 or 3 player at his role since the beginning of, well, 2021 basically. I'm pretty sure that any contending team not named San Francisco will be salivating at the mouth for this guy. And it's not just the household names, right? Some of these teams looking to rise from the bottom could very well bring him on if they were to sign some guys that Shu wants to play with, or if they offer the man a bag. The Glads are definitely a favorite to land him back in this situation. I mean, why wouldn't you when you have something really good over there? But maybe he's sick and tired of coming up short with them, you know? Maybe he just needs a change of scenery or to play in a fully Korean environment to have that true happiness. Shu is definitely one of the biggest names to look out for in free agency this year and to pay attention to all the storylines, because he's one of those guys who can actually change your future. That's enough about Shu though. Let's move on to the number 1 spot, where to no surprise, I have Fielder. I decided to rank him a little higher than Shu based on how crazy he went in the playoffs and his better flexibility throughout 2022. Other than that, I'd say this man needs no real introduction. He's been a top player at the flex support role the last 3 years and has shown zero signs of slowing down. And he very well might have just had his best season yet, as he's playing at an unbelievably high level across all heroes that he touches. I mean, even his Kiriko, which is a new character, was one of the best in the entire league, if not the best, depending on who you're talking to. He's shown that he can move into whatever role you need him at a split second's notice and still be one of the best. He is a god at this game, and there is no other way to explain it. He has that team-first mentality to keep your team nice and healthy, and he plays unselfishly and does whatever you need to help win a game. But at the same time, he possesses the mechanics to take over the game himself. Dude is in the prime of his career right now, and very well might be the best flex support in the game. He's an all-hands-on-deck type of player that you need to sign if you're trying to contend. Dallas, Houston, LA if they don't get back Shu, Philly, Atlanta, I mean, hell, even Boston, anybody. You gotta try and get this guy on your team if there is a chance for you. Now, for the sake of Dallas, I hope they bring him back and continue to build their future around him. If not, get him to another contender ASAP. Do not waste this guy's prime. And that's basically all I have to say in terms of fielder, so that's going to wrap up my top 10 support free agents heading into Overwatch League Season 6. To recap, the top 10 goes as follows. Number 10 is Skewed, number 9 is Chorong, Crimzo will be number 8, Vindaim is 7, 6 is Twilight, 5 is Izayaki, Leejaegon's going to be at 4, Chio at 3, Chio at 2, and Fielder at number 1. Now, obviously, there's room for debate on the order, and if some people maybe got snuffed, but that's up for you to decide down in the comments below. Leave your own top 10 so we can keep that discussion going. And if you enjoyed this video and you're looking forward to the next one, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. The next few days are going to be a marathon in preparation for free agency, so you definitely want to hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming content. This has been ATP, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.